Oye, Añelora. In this lesson video, we're going to take a look at the D Series for QR1, Round 1, D Series from the ISAT website. This lesson is geared towards applying the key ideas, which might prove useful for the D Series, into sheets. Now, if you haven't checked it out already, you might take a look at the STK video that we also have linked. That one shows how we use STK to generate some of the files that we're going to be using here in Sheets. So to know how to make them, you have to understand how to export a CSV using STK and some of the reports so that we can actually generate some of the files that we're going to be working with. Okay, so let's get started. The two scenarios that we have that we're looking at in the D series as of right now, the third scenario will be coming in the semi-distant future when I find some additional time, but the ones available right now are pilot, not pirate radio, where we have to worry about a hostile group of pirates trying to hack our satellite. We're trying to get the most contact time with ground stations, and for one of the first times, but not the last, we don't actually care about the total time of contact with the hostile target, the pirates, but we do care about the duration of any individual contact. Now that's something that is harder to bring up in the actual access reports. But we're going to show you how to work with that faster using the basic access report. Once again, go take a look at the STK video where you can go with ISAT and the pirate ship, right-click, access. I'm going to do this real quick, compute. We can do our access report, and then we export it as a CSV. So I'm showing you that real quick, but take a look for the more thorough walkthrough on the other video. Now that we've got that, that's one of the CSVs that we've actually got it set up. In our mission brief, it's laid out to us that any contact that is less than 20 minutes is perfectly fine. No problems whatsoever. Any contact that is 20 minutes or greater, up to 30 minutes, is going to be a low risk, which starts counting against our points. We basically lose some points for however many of those contacts we have. And then any contact greater than 30 minutes, but less than 40, is a moderate risk, and we start losing a lot more points for that. And then finally, any contact that's 40 minutes or greater basically ends our scenario. The risk is too high, and that's not an acceptable solution. So in order to work with that, if we're looking just in STK and we've got our access times, well, that's going to be a pain to have to manually look through all of these 130 numbers and count up how many of them are less than or equal to 20. Now this one's actually really easy. This is the default numbers. All of them are less than 20, so this one isn't losing any points, or missing out on points, I should say. Well, I guess actually that is actively losing points. Regardless, when you start changing this, you're probably going to find that we're going to get better contact times by having a little bit of risk. So here's where we want to go in and see how we can accommodate that. Now, you would update that access report and then export that access report as a CSV so that you could do these steps. What I want to do is I'm going to show you how to do this in Sheets. I will direct you to our spreadsheet skills lessons at the top of ISAT. So if you go up to General Knowledge and then go down to the spreadsheet skills, go down part way, we have a more generic video on working with CSVs, comma-separated values files. And it shows you how to work with them in both Google Sheets and also how to adjust them to work in Excel. They usually work a little bit easier in Sheets, so this is one of the places where I like working Sheets, and my students usually prefer that too for a variety of reasons. Okay, now that we've got that, if I remember correctly, in Sheets we go to File, Import. In Excel you have to go to Data instead. Once again, check out that other video if you're going to be working with Excel so that you can adjust this, but I'm going to do Import. Now I've got a bunch of different options. It says my drive, and it starts looking for things there, shared with me, recent, etc. But in this case, I'm going to go to upload because I've got it on my computer, and I'm going to click browse. And here's where in the video we mentioned making a folder that you can easily find will save you a lot of time and trouble. I know that I saved this file on my desktop in ISAT 1D1. So in this case, I want the satellite ISAT to facility Pirata access. So I'm going to bring that. And it's going to bring it in, and it gives us some options. We can create a new spreadsheet. We can replace the current spreadsheet. I'm going to replace the current spreadsheet, but you could open it up in a new tab or replace your current one. It's however you want to do it. Separator type, detect automatically. That usually works pretty well with Google Sheets, so you might go ahead with that. Convert text to numbers, dates, and formulas. I usually leave all these as the default, though a lot of times I will switch this over to replace current sheet or append to current sheet, that sort of thing, so I don't overwrite things. Import data. And we give it a moment, and now we have all of that report built in. Okay, great. So real quick, I'm going to show you how we can recreate the report itself. I'm going to say duration, minutes, and with this, I'm going to teach the spreadsheet a little bit of math. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Make this a bit bigger so that you're not staring at a small portion of it. I apologize. Okay, so now that we've got this bigger, I'm going to say equals for my duration, and I'm going to take my stop time minus my start time. And when I hit enter, it gives me a strange number. Now, I will tell you this, it took us a little bit to figure this out. It is doing everything correctly. It's taking this timestamp and subtracting off the other timestamp, but it is putting the number in days. So this is the number of days. The duration was 0.008214 days. Okay, I don't really want this one in days. What I want is in minutes, because that's what I care about. So I'm going to take this and multiply, if this is days, there are 24 hours in a day. And if I hit enter, this is how many hours it is, 0.197. But I actually want minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply it by 60 as well. This is how we turn the report that you all see into, or how we could recreate it, I guess I should say. Because we can see here, 11.82865, 11.829. Now, when Stellar Explorers grades scenarios, they mention that they have a grading system that goes out to 7 or 8 decimal places. Well, here's why. You all can't necessarily predict it if you're just using the access report. And honestly, you probably don't need to be able to predict your score out to 7 or 8 decimal places. But here is where that information actually is. Okay, now that I've taught it this, I can drag this down using the little circle on the bottom right of the cell. And I can go to the bottom, and now we've got, hey, 5.428, 11.286, 13.583, and I have now been able to recreate what's happening with our sheet. Well, you may be going, well, why do I need to do that? Because the access report already gave me those times. It's to show you the skills and the things that you can do. Not saying that you necessarily want to do that. I wouldn't necessarily do this one because I've already got a report that gives me that information. But in doing this, I've shown you how to work with timestamps, and I've used it on something that we know the answer to. So I know, or I have a good idea, that my method is working correctly because I can now check that value. Okay, but I'm not after all of these things. I could come down here, and with this column of numbers, I could do the same thing that they do. I could do the min function, equals min, and then select all of these. And the max. I'm not going to do all of those, but we could do the min function, the max function, the average function to give us the mean, and then we could actually do the summation, sum function, to add up all of those. And we would end up with all of these numbers. Here is how STK is actually generating all of this stuff. It's good to be able to do it on your own. But what we really want is this. Okay, but I'm going to set up two things. One, low risk, I'm going to say happens not at 20 minutes. Well, let's go ahead and do 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And moderate at 30 minutes. And both of these I'm going to mark as inputs. And I'll show you why, because I'm going to play around with changing them. High risk is at 40. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce the main thing that I designed this series around is teaching you about a count-if statement. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. First off, there's a count function where you can do equals for the function, do count, and then you can go through and we can, highlight all of these, and basically it counts if that cell is not empty. That's what count does. It literally counts. I've got 129 accesses, and now that's how I can actually go through and generate the first column here, is counts. But I don't actually want the count for this purpose. I'm going with the count if instead. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to do the following. Count if, open. So first off, range. I want to count any and all of these things, but I only want to count them under the right conditions. What I need is a count of how many of these things are greater than 20. So I'm going to highlight all the things that I want. That's my range. I'm going to do comma, and it asks me for the criterion. In other words, okay, what do you want me to check to see if I count this thing or not? And here's where we're going to tell it, I want you to count it if it is greater than or equal to 20. And then I'm going to close my parentheses. All right, sorry about the delay on that. Ran into a little bit of trouble with my recording software and a couple of other things too. We're picking back up where we left off. We have the count if function, and we want to go through and see how many, if any of these numbers, are greater than a given value. Now we could go in, we highlighted all of those to check. That's our range, and then the criterion is what we're checking it against, which in this case I put in quotation marks, greater than symbol, then equals, then the number 20, and close quotation marks. That's how you get it to check for numbers that are greater than or equal to 20. Okay, it gives me 0, but that's to be expected because there aren't any numbers in this list that are actually greater than or equal to 20. Let me change it to something that might give us a result. So let's see how many in this list are greater than or equal to 10. Okay, well, 79 of the 129 are actually greater than 10, or greater than or equal to, I guess I should say. In this case, let's see how many are greater than or equal to 1. Oh, all 129 of them are. So you can go through and you can manually change some of these things out, changing their threshold, but here's where we want to add a little bit more to our skills. This one gets a little bit trickier, but here's what we can do. I want to be able to control the low risk. I'm going to replace the greater than or equal to 20. I'm going to remove the 20 from there, go outside of my quotation marks, and how I get the spreadsheet, either Excel or Sheets, to actually load this in, is I'm going to add an ampersand, which is Shift 7 on the keyboard. That basically says, okay, take the previous statement, the greater than or equal to, and tie it to a comparison of, now I can click on my cell. I want to do the low risk. And so on this, I'm going to rename this count low. And I'm going to do count moderate. And so I'm going to do the same thing here, where I'm going to do equals count if open. Oops. I don't want to include the very first one there. I just want the numbers. I'm going to scroll down and get all of these. Great. And then I'm going to do comma. Let's see. I'm going to do greater than or equal to the quantity, ampersand, my moderate risk, say 30. I'm not going to do the count if for 40, because if I have any numbers that are above 40 or at 40 or above, then I instantly lose. So I might just do count high and just do a count, taking all of these, oops, comma, and on this one just doing greater than or equal to 40 and closing that one off. I don't need the count if, well, I guess I don't even need the, oh, I do need count if on that. I'm a little distracted, I apologize. Let's see, that should be good. Yeah. So now if I had one, if I overwrote this to be 42, for instance, I would have 1. Okay, here's the thing. All of these are saying 0 because right now my low risk is 20, my moderate risk is 30, and my high risk is 40. Let's say instead that my low risk were happening at 5 minutes instead. Okay, well, of the 129, 126 of them are greater than 5 minutes. My moderate risk, let's say that that's at 10, and my high risk, let's say that that's at 15. Or maybe I bring my high risk down to 12, and I do have ones greater than, oh, I didn't update this one to be the actual cell there. That's why it's not updating, so I apologize on that. I'm not going to bother with that, but we could change this. We only care if there's one that's greater than 40, not how many of them, just if there's one. But on this, I could adjust this for my low risk, and now I can see of this long number, based on what I put here, 126 of them are above 5 minutes. So if that were where my low risk were, I would have 126 low risk incidents. My moderate risk at 10, I would have 79 moderate risk. Or maybe I've got 10 and then maybe 12, for instance. I could then play around with these and see exactly how many I've got as a low or moderate risk to my satellite, which is important for me being able to predict my score. I apologize, I'm a little distracted. There is a rather insistent cat that will not go away and is demanding attention. So, we will continue onward. I apologize about the repeated delays and little confusion that we've got in this. Okay, going back to the list of things to cover. Now we've got our count ifs. Another one that I want to introduce that doesn't necessarily tie to this scenario or the second one that we're about to take a look at, but we could also do a sum if. That's another conditional statement. And you can do sum if, range, we could add up any of these numbers. So this isn't just saying count it or identify it. It's actually saying take this number, whatever it is, and add it up, but only if it meets the criteria. So, let's see. So we've got that. And then I'm going to do my sum range, or my criteria. And let's say that we're going with if it's greater than 10, for instance. Okay. And then I think that's pretty much, let me try that. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, you have the option of being able to tack more on there, which can be a little bit more complex, but I'm just showing you the basic on this. If we went through and only wanted to add up the contacts that were greater than 10 minutes, then this is a great function. It would go through, and let's try this. I'm going to double check this new thing that I've made. I'm going to make the threshold 0. So I have it count up anything that is greater than 0, which should be everything in this list. So it added up everything in the list, and I ended up with 1,377. Let's go check it against the number we know, 1,377.788. We get that exact same number down there. But now with the sum if I only wanted to count instances that were greater than 10 minutes, and ignore any of them that are less than 10 minutes, then I could add this up. Or I could switch that around, and instead of greater than, I could do less than. If I add up all of the contacts that are less than 10 minutes, I end up with 394.8 minutes. Okay, so that's another thing that I wanted to show you real quick that may or may not come in handy with some of the future scenarios, since we're here talking about how to work with the spreadsheets. Okay. We are almost done on this. The last one that I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at the D2 scenario. This was the one with the moon of Jupiter, Ganymede. So if you haven't, once again, take a look at the video lesson that we've got on STK. And that'll fill in how we actually got this file that we're about to work with. But I'm going to go to File, Import, and once again, Upload, Browse, an easy place to find. Since I've already pulled a file from it, for now it is keeping this as the default location. So I'm going to go up to Ground Vehicle OPA to Satellite ISAT, and I'm going to load this in. Create new spreadsheet. I'm going to replace the current sheet instead of making a new one, but play around with the settings on this and make certain that you're not accidentally overwriting something that you work with. Okay, so this is the regular access report that says when we have contact, but what I wanted to do was to find the gaps. And I'm going to do this in hours, since that's what our actual listing is. So if I wanted to find the gap between my first contact and the second contact, I would do equals. I'm going to take when the second contact begins, and I'm going to subtract off when the first contact ended. Now, once again, this number comes out in Earth days. So this number is in days. If I want to convert it to hours, I'd multiply that by 24. So my first gap, when my first contact ends, the time until my second contact begins is 3.68 hours. And I can now drag this down, and I can find, ignore the last one, because it's pulling a 0 number in there, so it's not one that we actually want. But my first gap was 3.68. My second was a little bit more than that, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then we can also see partway down, here's the 86 hours and the 66 hours that we did before. Okay, let's compare this to the gap report that we actually got in STK. Oh, looks like I had closed it out, but we can bring that back up in not too long. I'm going to right-click, go to Access. With OPA, go to Report and Graph Manager, and bring up my favorite, the Gaps report. So comparing this, we've got 3.679, 3.679, which is right there. The second contact, the gap between the second and third contact was 3.681. So going back to that, 3.6812, and that's what it's rounded to with to the three significant figures. So I could also go in here and then try and collapse this back down where it matches the same values or number of decimal places that are shown in the STK report. So that's a little bit of cleanup that you can do on that. Okay, now between all the things that we've introduced here, you have the ability to export complex reports, import them into a spreadsheet, and be able to start working with them in a bunch of advanced ways. So hopefully these skills will prove useful for you in these scenarios and many more to come. Until next time.